All right, let's open up a rather fascinating investigative case file today in this explainer. We're going to be looking at the Bhavishya Malika. Now, this is a 600-year-old prophetic text composed by the Panchasakha, 5 highly revered saints from Odisha, India. And what's wild is that this isn't just some collection of vague, open-to-interpretation predictions. It's actually a highly specific, mathematically coded timeline that points directly to the end of our current age, the Kali Yuga. So our goal today is to examine the evidence, unpack the chronological coordinates left in these ancient manuscripts, and really understand the precise blueprint they lay out for the future of our world.
Okay, let's dive into this. We have to start with the number 13. Now, modern cultures often treat this number with a lot of superstition, right? Well, when we're analyzing the Bhavishya Malika, we need to completely discard that notion. In these ancient scriptures, 13 is actually the central cryptographic key. It's a deliberate, recurring mathematical marker that the Panchasakha saints left behind to signal the absolute climax of the Kali Yuga. This one singular number weaves a really complex thread through their astronomical records, their geopolitical predictions, and their ultimate timeline for global transformation.
So, here is how our investigative dossier breaks down today. First, decoding the number 13. Then, the 13-day Paksha, followed by 13 nations uniting, 13 months in Odisha, the dawn of 2032, and finally, the spiritual remedy.
Part 1. Decoding the number 13, the code of Satya Yuga.
You see, in the context of Sanatana Dharma's eternal traditions, the Bhavishya Malika reveals that 13 is actually the foundational number of creation for the Satya Yuga. That's the approaching age of truth. It specifically marks what's called the Yuga Sandhya, which is essentially this transitional twilight period between two massive world ages. The Malika records exactly 13 distinct observable signs that will manifest on Earth to signal that the Kali Yuga is coming to an end. Furthermore, the scriptures declare that specific numbers, 7, 13, 17, and 27, act as precise chronological coordinates, meaning whenever major global upheavals occur, or when Lord Kalki executes his mission to re-establish Dharma, the dates will consistently align with these numerical markers. They aren't just random, chaotic occurrences. They form a meticulously planned divine schedule.
Moving to Part 2, the 13-day Paksha, an astronomical anomaly.
And this brilliantly illustrates our first major piece of evidence. This astronomical anomaly acts as a sort of celestial trigger. Normally, a standard lunar fortnight, or a Paksha, lasts 15 days, going from a new moon to a full moon. But the Malika's code describes a highly unusual, condensed, and very destructive 13-day lunar fortnight. When a fortnight shrinks down to just 13 days, it forces major events like solar and lunar eclipses, along with a new moon and Sankranti, which is the sun's transition into a new zodiac sign, to abruptly cluster together in a very tight window. According to the Bhavishya Malika, this celestial compression is a direct catalyst for global upheaval.
The scripture is incredibly specific about what happens next. As it's written in the Bhavishya Malika, when a 13-day Paksha occurs, Lord Kalki will think about the work of destruction. Now, this isn't just about natural disasters. The text explains that this condensed astronomical timeline signals the acceleration of Lord Kalki's mission to establish Dharma, initiating a specific 13-year period of global conflict. It literally acts as the cosmic starting gun for the end of the age.
Part 3, 13 nations uniting, geopolitical alliances.
Now we shift from the cosmos down to Earth. Centuries ago, the text recorded a very precise blueprint of global factions. According to the Malika, an unprecedented alliance will form to launch a coordinated attack on India. The text explicitly states that 13 Muslim-majority nations, naming countries like Turkey and Iran, will unite alongside Pakistan and China. The scripture also details that this coalition will receive multifaceted support from the USA and Britain. On the opposing side, the Malika declares that nations like Russia, Japan, Germany, and France will step in as allies to defend India. So what we have here is a massive multi-front alignment described in startling granular detail.
The Malika states plainly that this conflict will escalate rapidly into a devastating Third World War. It details that in this war, nuclear weapons will be used extensively across the globe. However, the scripture asserts that India's defense will involve divine intervention. It predicts that Lord Kalki will thwart these nuclear strikes on India, shielding the nation against overwhelming military odds as the global war reaches its absolute most catastrophic phase.
Which brings us to Part 4. 13 months in Odisha, the final battle.
So, the crucial point is that the geographic timeline eventually narrows significantly. After 13 years of global conflict for the establishment of Dharma, the Bhavishya Malika states that the final, most intense phase of this war will be concentrated entirely in the state of Odisha, India. And this climax, it will last exactly 13 months. The text reveals that the Great War of the Mahabharata, which was paused back in the Dwapara Yuga, is actually an unfinished battle that will resume and violently conclude here. This ultimate convergence takes place at Kandagiri and Bhuvaneshwar, where Lord Kalki is prophesied to defeat 14 lakh, that's 1.4 million foreign soldiers, to finally secure a lasting victory.
Part 5. The Dawn of 2032 and the Beginning of the Satya Yuga.
Now, you might be thinking this all sounds incredibly apocalyptic, but the Bhavishya Malika doesn't record these events just to frighten people. In fact, it specifically categorizes these coming catastrophes as labor pains. As we discussed, we're currently living in the Yuga Sandhya, the twilight between ages. The old world literally has to pass away to make room for the rebirth of the world, the Satya Yuga, or the Age of Truth. It's described as a world washed clean, completely devoid of the corruption, violence, and decay of the previous age. And the Malika gives us a very precise target year for this new dawn. According to the calculations mathematically recorded in the text, the Satya Yuga will begin in the year 2032.
Finally, Part 6, The Spiritual Remedy, a Path to Salvation.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that a true scripture doesn't just warn you of a coming storm, it tells you exactly how to build a shelter. And the prescribed remedy here isn't physical preparation or underground bunkers, it's entirely spiritual armor. The Malika teaches that surviving this 13-year countdown requires a profound return to pure devotion. Specifically, it instructs seekers to practice Trisandhya, which is praying 3 times a day, to continuously chant the Madhavanam, the divine names, and to deeply study the sacred text of the Srimad Bhagavat. These dedicated practices are essentially the life rafts designed to carry humanity safely through the twilight of the Kali Yuga.
It's absolutely vital to note where this profound clarity is coming from today. The Bhavishya Malika teachings have been meticulously researched, preserved, and propagated, both in India and internationally, by Pandit Dr. Sri Kashinath Mishra and the Biswa Sanatana Dharma Seva Trust. Through decades of really rigorous scholarship, compiling these incredibly fragile ancient manuscripts and translating them for a global audience, this ancient wisdom has been kept alive. And importantly, it's been kept entirely unfiltered, exactly as the Panchasakha recorded it centuries ago. Let's wrap up this explainer with a really profound thought drawn straight from the core of these teachings. Embrace Dharma as the eternal refuge for the welfare of all worlds. You see, the Code of 13 isn't just a countdown to geopolitical war, it is a countdown to the greatest spiritual renewal in human history. The scripture has laid out the timeline, the signs, and the ultimate destination of 2032. So the only real question left is, as the world enters the final phase of this mathematical countdown, are you spiritually prepared for the dawn? Thank you so much for joining me today.